Hey everybody, happy crafting. It's that time. So I am going to do a more in-depth video on the trifold envelope. I did a video this morning and I have deleted it because I took way too long explaining too many things that you didn't need to know. So I am just going to show you very quickly some of the envelopes I've done so far, and then we are going to get right into it. This is a napkin. These are digital printouts that I used, and I printed them on tracing paper. This is a stenciled inside. I stenciled it with a doily, and I'm going to show you how I do that. These are pictures I've cut out of a magazine, and this is a digital printout that I printed out from Tracy Fox, and that's how I did this one. And this is my Paris envelope, and that's a napkin, and I used some extra rubber stamps on it. And this is digital printout, and I just did a lot of embellishing on that one. Some of them are a lot simpler than others. This is calico collage and stenciling, and this one again has cutouts from a book and some embellishing and stenciling, and I've been busy. This is another napkin one. This has a little holder for the flap, and this has yarn and a button closure, more stenciling, and napkin on the outside. So, without further ado, I am going to show you how I do this starting from the beginning. So you want 3 envelopes. The envelopes can be any size you want. Just remember, if you're going to put them inside your journal, they have to fit. But all 3 envelopes have to be the same size as each other. So it doesn't matter what type of envelope you use. I did do one, and the envelope was very weak paper, very light paper, and I had some problems with the envelope ripping. So that's just one warning. The other thing you need is some sort of stencil if you're going to stencil. I use doilies or I use a stencil. And you need some sort of whatever you're going to decorate this side of the envelope with. It can be napkin, it can be digital printouts, it can be magazine pages you cut up to size, it can be stuff from a paper pad, whatever you want. It's your call. It's your envelope. Whatever you might be using, that if you're using a paper pad or a digital printout for your journal decorations theme, then you would probably want your envelope to match that. As you see, I did like 6 or 7 or 8 envelopes so far. None of them had any rhyme or reason. I was just playing because I've never done them before. So the first step is to glue your envelopes in this manner. You are going to line them up and glue one flap to the outside. I consider this the outside, this the inside. So you're going to glue your envelopes in this manner right here. And I do know that if you have like a grid mat, it does make it easier to line up the envelopes, but if you don't, that's okay too. There's ways of doing it that are pretty simple. And I have this envelope flipped backwards. So you are going to line up your 3 envelopes in this manner, okay? And then you're going to glue them together. The one thing you want to be aware of is you see how your envelope has a straight side here? And you see where the fold is for your flap? You want to leave a gap about like that. Hopefully you can see the pencil line. Right there. This pencil line here. You see how the pencil line is above the fold for the flap? Do not glue your envelope, the next one to this one, flush with this flap because you will have problems folding it over. So you want to leave some space. And I do have a grid mat here, so I will show you both ways. So what I'm going to do is take out my, you can use glue stick, you can use Fabri-Tac, you can use white glue, Aleene's Tacky Glue, you can use Mod Podge if you want, you can use the glitter glue. Today I am going to use my glitter glue, and what I am going to do is I'm going to glue these 3 together. So trying to make sure I'm in frame. So I'm going to run my bead of glue just above the fold of the flap. And the reason is because you need a little space for that stuff for everything to fold over. And the more stuff you put on or in your envelope, the more, the harder it's going to be to close. So I got to work quick with this glue. So what I'm going to do is, if you don't have a grid mat, I'm going to fold this over, and you want the edges of your envelopes to match. And see, I left a little gap. There's the fold of the envelope. There's the edge of the other envelope. So I have 2 folded together. Now, if you have a grid mat, and I saw this done by somebody else, I don't take credit, line up your previous envelopes. You can flip them over this way if you want when you're using a grid mat. And you're going to glue the flap of this envelope the same way I just did the previous one, not down to the fold line. And I know where my glue needs to go. And if you line up the edge of this envelope along the same line of the grid, you should have them. I should have done it this direction. Don't do as I do, do as I say. Make sure you have not glued it down next to the flap like I just did. Luckily I had just a little bit of time to work with that. Okay? So again, I have a fuzzy stuck to me. I left some space between the fold of the flap of the envelope and the edge of the envelope I'm gluing it to. There's a little glue overrun there, so that's okay. Now, if you wanted to make this big enough to put journal paper inside, you could. That's going to be another whole video. But for today, this is how we're doing it. And you want them to line up. And this one doesn't quite line up, so I'm just going to put a new fold in it. And then that's going to fold over like that. Okay. So you have to decide, for one thing, do you want your envelope to unfold in this direction? Or do you want your envelope to unfold in this direction? So say you're going to put it on a journal page, right? Do you think you're going to want to put it on a journal page this way? Or do you think you're going to want to put it on a journal page this way? Decide on the orientation that you want it to be. And once you decide that orientation, then you have to decide what you're going to put on it. Are you going to use a napkin and decoupage it? Are you going to put use your digital printouts? It all depends on what you want to use. So today, on one of mine, I just tore some of the digital printouts up. I used tracing paper to tear it out of. To tear from. So I will just do another one in that fashion. And with my paper, I sometimes like to use either cardstock behind it or fabric and ribbon and lace and cheesecloth. Sometimes I use muslin. So depending on what you want to use, I will say the thicker you make what is on this side, the more closed up your envelope pockets become. So for example, I will show you one. This one is very simple. This envelope just has this napkin on the outside. Besides this little flap holder, all that's on the outside is the napkin. And there isn't very much on the inside. I did put a little embellishment on each corner of the pocket, and I put this napkin on the inside. But this pocket, as you can see, I can open it quite wide. Okay? So, the alternative to that is if you have a lot of stuff, like this one has cardstock behind the tracing paper and fabric on it. And these pockets are just a little bit tighter. I did one here. This one has tracing paper and some cardstock and lace and fabric on this side, and it has cardstock on this side. These pockets don't open very wide. They're very stiff, and they don't open wide at all. So what you're going to use on each side is going to affect how wide your pockets open up. And I just wanted to point that out to you because it is important. Because when you get done, it can barely stick a finger in there. You're not going to be able to put a lot in that envelope. That's okay if you're just putting a journaling card in. No big deal. If you plan on putting a mini journal in there with paper in it, you're going to want your pockets to be larger. Napkins are really, really good for just I better close my glue. I have such a problem closing my glue. Uh-oh, it's already stuck. So, just so you know, it does make a much bigger difference than you would think. So the tracing paper is very, very light. Obviously, a piece does not reach all the way across. Now, if you had some of the rice papers that you buy, they're longer. If you used smaller envelopes, you may get more on a piece of paper where it would cover the entire envelope. But that doesn't matter to me. So I am just going to start tearing, and I'm just going to let it tear down, and I'm going to see about how far down I need to go, and I'm going to tear across. Okay, and I want my top and my other side to also be sort of raggedy. And if you want to ink this up, you can do that as well. And I'm forever forgetting to ink up before I do anything. So I am going to, this is tea dye, Distress ink. I'm going to quickly ink my envelopes up to give them a little color in the background. I want it just a little darker. On my other envelopes, I did add the cream colored cardstock, but I'm not doing that to this one. These envelopes are already a little bit smaller, I think, than the other ones. So I don't want to make them any tighter. And just do this up real quick. I tore the heck out of my other mat. So I'm just using paper now because I didn't, every time I saw that tear, it bothered me. I was using my utility knife to cut magazine pages and book pages, and I didn't realize until I was all done that I had torn the heck out of my mat. And every time I look at it now, it just makes me frustrated that I did that. So now I'm using just a piece of brown paper, which works. It's fine. It's just, it wiggles around a lot, but so did my mat. So I'm going to do this beforehand because I can guarantee you on every envelope I've made up to this point, I have forgotten to do this ahead of time. And so I am trying to be better about doing this part ahead of time because it actually looks better. I'd rather over ink than not be able to ink the parts I'm supposed to have inked because I can't get to them because I've already glued something on. Alright, so we'll do the other side after. And I may darken that anyway. So let's see. I have a lot of them that open this way. So I'm going to make this one go in this direction. So I think I'm going to tear my pieces out first because I tend to, let's see. Finish your thought, Martha. Okay. I tend to run out. I may run out of images. I just tore the top of the Eiffel Tower off. Oh well. That's the way it goes. Okay. Alright, and so there's that one, there's that one, and don't really have a good image left for this third one. Not quite enough paper all in one thing. So, we'll see. I'll make my own collage out of the collage paper. Can always do that. Nothing wrong with that. Unless it's right side up and backwards. Okay. Oop, come on. There we go. I'm good with that. That's fine with me. I'm not picky. The more I overthink it, the more frustrated I get, so I'm not always real happy if I overthink it. And so I'm learning to simplify and just go with the flow. I do want something behind some of these, so, or behind all of them actually. So let's see. Cut this into thirds. Sometimes I stick with the same thing. Sometimes I'll do different things behind each one. So I'm going to think about this. Yeah. All right, so I'm going to do 3 strips like that, but I'm going to ink them. And we are going to... Where's the third one? It's right there. Okay. So I'm going to ink these real quick. And then, before I glue those on, I am going to... So I'm going to use Archival Coffee ink. And just... this is just natural colored muslin. I did not tea dye it. I just find if I want to do this and add a little color, I can do that as I go. It's not hard. And then we are going to stencil this side first before I glue anything else on. Put the bottom on the cover, Martha. Makes a lot more sense. Okay. And when I do this, oh no, oh well, that's okay. It'll cover up. So what I'm going to do is I am going to use the doily on this one so I can show how I think and talk at the same time, or don't think and talk at the same time. How I do this. So I am going to take my tea dye and use the lacy part of my doily. I just switched out my sponges for my other sponges were, they were flaking off and it was annoying the heck out of me. And I got this package of various shapes of sponges from Walmart for pretty inexpensively. So I figured, why not? Just switch them out. And just, if you have the right size doily, you can pretty much just pounce your ink on it. And you want to go over the outside edge to get that ruffle edge look. I'm just going to do, so I'm just stopping at this envelope, and I'm not going to the next envelope. And I will show you why in a minute. So there's that one. And then I'm going to move my doily down here. And I'm going to do it so it sort of carries on to the next envelope. Ties it in, so to speak. Don't rub back and forth. Don't pull on the doily. Just pounce up and down. No matter what, if you have one of these daubers, you can do that too. I think I need to ink my ink pad, re-ink my ink pad. When I ordered this ink pad, I did order a re-inker at the same time because I know how I am. Uh-oh, shifted. Okay, so just put it back. So I've been watching that new show on Netflix with Marie Kondo. She's the lady that goes in and teaches people how to organize and get joy out of their stuff and organize their homes. And I watched, I think it was the second in the series last night. Boy, that house was a mess. But you know what? They pulled it together. And they got that house all cleaned up, and man, it made a huge difference. Okay, so I'm going to line up the bottom and just do this bottom envelope. Now, if you wanted this darker, use a darker ink. And the bonus out of this is you're getting a doily that is now inked up and ready to be used inside a journal. And this is my second recording of this today. As I said, my first recording was not acceptable. Way too much talking about stuff you didn't need to know about. So, there you go. Yeah, I messed up a little here, but that's okay. I'm not fussed about that. You know what? Stuff happens, you know? And then I just fill in the gaps with more stenciling of the doily lace. So, just do the top with the top. And if you want to use a smaller doily, you get a different effect. As you saw in my other envelope, and then I'm just going to kind of do a double, like a double rainbow. I know time is flying by on the recording, so I'm trying to hurry. There you go. So you could also stencil the edges around here if you wanted to do that as a background. You could use a darker ink. So I wanted to orient this way. And I am going to use, not that one. I am going to pull out my muslin, and I save these threads. I make a little thread flower sometimes with some of my stuff. I use all these threads I pull off in my thread flowers. And I'm sorry, I'm very hoarse today. Probably from trying to talk on 2 videos this morning that were failures. Okay. So that one can go there. That one can go there. Put this down a little further. And put that right on the edge. And then pulling extra stuff over. Okay. So I am going to use my Fabri-Tac for this since it's fabric on paper. And wait for the glue to arrive. Ugh. I try not to put it on too heavy. I do try and not miss so much as I am missing now. You could also put it right on the envelope. And then for this, I am going to use my glitter glue. Now, as soon as you put glue, any type of glue, on the tracing paper, it will start to curl up. So you kind of have to be aware of that and work kind of fast. This glue dries really fast, and if it curls on itself, you will lose your image. You won't be able to use it. I put glue on mine the other day, and it totally curled up on itself, and it was awful. Oops, see, there it goes. It will totally do that and curl up on itself. And then you sort of kind of got to find something else to put on it because it'll be done for. All right, so let's put the glue on the envelope this time. You can kind of get it a little thinner that way. Kind of spread it out more. And if you need it wider, you missed a little bit on an edge, you can always go back later and tuck some glue underneath where you missed. But you're putting the image over it anyway, or in this case, images. So I hope doing this from start to finish actually helps some of you that had questions. And I will be, that's not the one I wanted down first, darn it. I will be posting this on Facebook for those that asked on how I did it. Some other people have tried it since I started posting mine, and they've done a beautiful job. And it's fun to have other people tell me that I've inspired them to try something, because I really get a kick out of that. That's all right. And then, got our last one. Excuse me. So, put the fabric down. Close that up. Something I often forget to do. And we will do this. There you go. Leaning Tower of Eiffel Tower. Leaning Tower of Pisa and Eiffel Tower all wrapped into one. So there it is. I don't care if my stuff is wonky. I don't care, I mean, I want it to look nice, but I don't get overly fussed about certain things. It's just not worth it. I don't try to find perfection. I mean, they call it junk journaling. I don't love that name, but it is what it is. Now, if you wanted to put some other things on the back, some other images, if you had leftovers or you tore something else out, you could do that. But I find sometimes the simpler the better. If I wanted to put these on the back, I could do that. But I'm not going to. If I wanted to tear like this out, you know, just put a touch of blue paper up here and put a rose down here. I could do that. I don't want to on this one. I'll save those for another envelope. I'm perfectly happy with it the way it is. There's, you know, you could stamp other things on it, but I'm happy with that. So that's how I do that. Now, depending on how you want a closure, will depend on what you do with this. Now, you could put, now maybe I'll put something right here. Just to dress up the flap a little bit and make it look a little nicer. Yeah, I'm gonna glue some of that on. And then you have to decide how you want to close it. If you're just going to paper clip it to the edge of a page, you really don't have to worry too much about that. If you're going to put it in a pocket, you may want to put some sort of button closure or something on it. You can do that. I have one that I made this morning that I thought I would try a new type of button closure that I haven't done before, but I've thought about doing. So I think I will try that. And we'll give that a go. I don't know how much time I have. 37 minutes I've done. Okay. Not bad. Much better than this morning. It's like a challenge to try and get something done under the time that I have to do it in. Those kind of challenges are not always that fun, but it's a challenge nonetheless, so it's okay. I'm going to get rid of my little bits here because the ones I can't really use for anything else, that'll keep. Background. And then I will snip these off. Hopefully without cutting my envelope, which I've been known to do before too. It's like, oops. All right. Okay. So now we have a very pretty envelope, and if you wanted to use this to gift some items to somebody, you could just tuck them inside. You have 3 beautiful pockets here. The other thing you could do is, and we could try that. I didn't prepare for it, but we have a few minutes, so no, not that. But we could use I knew I could do it. You could make a sturdy little pocket just out of copy paper that you've coffee or tea stained, or you can even use your inks to ink them up. You could put little pockets right here. I don't know if I want to do that right now, but you could do that. The other thing I saw, Tracy Fox, love junk journals. Love you, Tracy. Love you too, gal, because without you guys, I wouldn't be doing any of this. So I'm just going to leave that one. I like the way it is. I sometimes adjust this flap so when you start putting things in there, it has a little more space. And I would ink all the threads. I would ink this quickly, maybe with a darker ink around the edges. So I'm going to use my coffee instead of my tea. And many of mine I have put lace on because I just really like the look. And it also, if you put it on the inside here where the glue is, kind of takes care of that glue spot. And I kind of like doing it that way. I like covering that glue spot up because, I don't know, it's just something about it where I think it's going to, you know, possibly stick to something later on. Wouldn't want that to happen. And I do the pockets. And sometimes on some of these envelopes, you have to like reinforce this part of where it's glued together. I just stick some glue down inside there and call it a day. Because if it's going to be used a lot, it's going to get wear and tear. You want it to be glued better. So let's do these edges. And these edges. Get them all. Get them all. Get her done. Okay. So, you know, you could put lace on there. I mean, you could take pink lace, or on one of them I used gray lace. And it makes a very pretty envelope. So, I guess I would do the outside in the coffee as well. So, let me stop messing around with this. You know I'm not going to stop messing with it, right? Because, you know, once you start inking, you got to finish inking. Okay. One dog is snoring, the other one's wandering around wanting to eat his dinner, even though it's not dinner time yet. My dog starts bothering me at no later, sometimes earlier, but no later than 3 o'clock, and he eats dinner at 4:45. And the dog is not starving. So, all right, so there's the envelope. All pretty and all done up. All right, so another one down. I was going to show you, I am going to try and sew a button onto the one I did earlier. I just have to find it now. There it is. I was going to sew a button on here. So I have not done this before. So there's that. So we're going to experiment. I am going to find what I think is the center, or thereabout. And I am going to put 4 dots there. And I am going to, I cut this out of a 1/2-inch circle cutter out of cardstock. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to use this as a reinforcement for the button, for the envelope flap, so that it does not tear through the envelope. Now, if I can get this down, I'm going to... There. And it marked it. I can just barely see it, but it marked it. And I'm going to take, I have a hole punch that is teeny tiny. I don't know. It might be, I'm going to experiment on the cardstock. It might be too big. It might leave too big of a hole. Yeah, that's a really big hole for what I want to do. So I am going to not use that, and I'm just going to use my needle to get it through there. And I think I will just line up that one hole. Wrong hole. Didn't look very centered. That looks better. I'm going to glue this down. I'm not going to glue it down. Maybe I am going to glue it down. I think I will glue this down. As I said, I have not done this before. This has been brewing in my brain for a little bit to do buttons this way. The other way I did it was I cut out a bunch of these discs and I glued them behind the button so that you could wrap the yarn or ribbon or whatever behind the button. But that's not always the best way to do it. Okay, so I am going to line that up to that hole. I only put light glue down because you're going to go through this with a needle and you don't want to make it harder on yourself. And you need a sharp needle, and I'm going to use some embroidery floss. You could use a very strong, like a carpet thread or something if you wanted to. I'm going to use, I think, 2 strands because I want it to be, sorry, I'm using my mouth because I don't have 3 hands. I want it to be strong enough to hold this button and hold whatever you put around it. So a sharp needle. Let's see, but one that I can get 2 threads through. And with my eyesight, we'll take the sharpest, biggest needle. Well, I don't want it too big. It's got to go through the buttonhole, which is another thing. Well, these buttonholes are pretty big. Yeah, no problem. Okay, so I'm going to put with my trifocals. Lovely. That went well. I am going to put the button on here. And try and make sure it's centered. I'm trying to find that one hole in that cardstock. Oh, this is going to be tough. Maybe too much glue. Yeah, I think I'm going to punch the hole and see what happens. I'm going to see what happens. And I could probably use a lot more embroidery floss, use a thicker strand of it, actually. Nope, wrong one. Oh, you'd think I'd never sewn a stinking button on before. Only because I'm doing it on camera. If I was sitting here by myself doing it, well, it still wouldn't go smoothly. So I'm going to hold some of this thread back and see if I can get this needle. Now you want the cardboard to be able to support the envelope. So that's why the cardboard is there. It'd be a lot easier if you didn't have to poke through the envelope and the cardboard and everything all together. But you sort of need it there. Otherwise, I'd be afraid that the envelope paper, especially some of the envelopes I have, the envelope paper would definitely tear with any use with a ribbon being, you know, tied around it back and forth. So, let's see. You'd think once the holes were made, you could get the needle back through them pretty easily, but not when I'm sewing. Okay. Now, if you want to, on this side here, you could put some washi tape over it. You can, sorry, I don't know why I have so much stuff draining. Okay. Again, I really have sewn a lot of things by hand. I have quilted by hand. I sew bindings on quilts by hand, but for some reason, because I'm doing this on a camera with paper, with an envelope, with a button, it just isn't really going very well. So I'm not pulling this thread really tight because the whole point of this is, gosh, the whole point of this is that you want to be able to get something underneath it. You want to be able to have a ribbon or yarn or something like that, be able to get it underneath that button. Oh my gosh, I think I just unsewed. Okay. Oops. Yeah, that's where the big hole is. Now we're cooking. Oh, did I speak too soon? So I'm just going back and... Don't learn your lesson the first 3 times, Martha. I'm just sort of going back and forth so that I can ensure... Oh, dear. Well, today seems to have been one of those days. I somehow got a knot in my thread. There we go. All right, well, since that knot is there, I'm going to do one more pass and get that knot through, hopefully, the other side. Oh, please come through, please come through. Oh, no. Okay, that's not going to go through that hole. Darn. All right. Well, okay, Sarah. Work with what we have, right? Which means I have to pull it back through that side. And what I'm going to do is just tie these ends together. And I'm going to use what's called a surgeon's knot. If you don't know what that is, it's really easy. Basically, you tie it once. Hopefully you're catching this. You put your thread end through once. Then you don't pull it. You put it through again. One more time. And that, when you pull it, it automatically becomes a knot. And you don't have to try and hold that first thread down to tie the second time to make it a knot. It just automatically becomes a knot because you've put it through 2. So you're going to put it through once, put it through your loop, put it through your loop again before you pull your loop, your 2 ends, pull your 2 ends, and you've got another surgeon's knot. So I'm going to cut this rather close. So I cut it really close. I'll put my needle over there before I lose it, which I'll still lose it. I am going to put a dab of glue here and kind of mush it around on that knot. And then I am going to find a little piece of washi. So this is a little piece of flowered washi, and I may just put it all the way across this top here. And it's going to need extra glue now. I've pretty much like abused the whole sticky side of this washi. Alrighty, let's see if we can do this. I'm not as agile at this as Gail is. So I am going to put this across, and it's not going to be right at the very top because I want it to cover that button in the thread. Well, not the button, but the thread from sewing the button on. Okay. And then I'm going to once again get my, knock everything over, and get my scissors all sticky again. Cut the ends off. And now I am going to find something to tie around this. Now it could be more of this embroidery thread. It could be ribbon. It could be lace. It could be whatever you want it to be. Let's see. I'm just going to make it this ribbon. So I do about... I'm horrible at measuring. Again, it's math. I'm going to leave that, wrap it around, give myself some extra. So I wrapped it around, but I'm leaving extras on the end. And what I'm going to do is, because now I can get up underneath this button, I'm going to turn it upside down. I'm going to get underneath the button with the ribbon. I'm going to tie another surgeon's knot. So I'm going to go through the loop once and through the loop again. Wrap it back around my button. And coordination is not my strong suit. Come on, behave. All right. And I'm leaving myself, I want to leave myself enough. Oh, for heaven's sakes. Okay. Through the loop once, through the loop, around the loop, and through the loop a second time. Pull it. Don't pull too hard because you don't want to undo all the work you just did. And then you can wrap this around a couple of times, and you can tie yourself a pretty bow. And you can cut that ribbon off. And there you go. Or you can just untie your bow, and you can wrap it around your button again, and just let them hang. So I'm pretty happy with that. In fact, I'm going to cut a little more off. So I'm really happy with that. I like the way it came out. I hope this helps you figure out buttons, closures. You could use a magnetic closure, you could use Velcro, you could use whatever you want. But there's how I do my trifold envelopes. The next thing is I have to make a whole ton of ephemera because now I have to fill all these envelopes with something. So I hope this helps, and I hope you had fun. And I hope you like your envelope, and I hope that you have an enjoyable, crafty day. Take care, everybody. Thank you to everyone who has subscribed. Thank you to everyone who watches. I appreciate it ever so much. If you like this video, give me a thumbs up. Leave comments below. Subscribe if you haven't already. I'd appreciate that. Share. You can put it on Pinterest if you want. That doesn't hurt my feelings any. Have yourself a great day and happy crafting. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.